You've been waiting for the apology, waiting for the explanation, waiting for them to understand, waiting for it to make sense, to be made right, to be rewritten in a way that doesn't ache when you remember it. But I must tell you something that may at first unsettle your mind and yet liberate your spirit. You don't need closure. You never did. What you need is release. You need to let go. Not because they were right, not because it didn't hurt, not because it doesn't still echo in the chambers of your heart, but because your soul is not designed to be held hostage by a past it did not choose. Closure is a concept of the mind, a narrative construct, a way to put a bow on what will never be tidy. The mind seeks it like a final page in a storybook, as if healing requires punctuation. But the soul does not need an ending. The soul is infinite, and in the infinity of your being, there is no door that needs closing, only a sky that longs to open. When you demand closure, you are asking for something external to complete something internal, and therein lies the trap. You are handing your peace to something outside of you, and as long as you do that, you are a prisoner of someone else's timing, someone else's remorse, someone else's growth that may never come. But release is yours. Always, right now, in this breath. It is a spiritual decision to no longer carry what was never yours to begin with. Release is not forgetfulness, it is not denial, it is not spiritual bypassing. It is the conscious decision to bless the past without dragging its weight. It is not saying it didn't matter. It's saying it mattered deeply, and I choose to be free anyway. You have tried to make sense of it, combed through memories like a forensic detective looking for where the love went cold, where the truth was bent, where the fracture first began. But that search has not led to peace, because peace is not found through dissection, it is found through surrender. What if it never makes sense? What if their pain was the only language they knew? What if their silence was their own wound, speaking louder than words? Can you live without the full translation? Let me ask you this. Would you rather understand, or would you rather be free? The ego says, I need to know. The spirit says, I am willing to let go. The ego says, they need to make it right. The soul says, I no longer need their words to validate my healing. Release is a return to yourself, to your wholeness, to the you that existed before the wound. It is not about them. It never was. Your healing is your own. There is a sacred space within you, untouched by betrayal, unchanged by loss. It is the part of you that knows peace without condition. It is the divine core of your being that doesn't need a reason to radiate light. But when you keep reaching backward, you're walking away from that sanctuary. You are facing a door that may never open, while behind you stands the open sky of your becoming. To release is to stop resisting what has already happened. It is to stop demanding that the past be different, because it won't be. It is to stop replaying scenes that were never meant to be repeated. Because what keeps hurting you is not what happened, but the story you keep feeding. It is the resurrection of the pain in your own mind that drains you. So much of suffering is not the original wound, but our refusal to let it die. We resurrect it with thoughts. We keep it alive with resentment. We visit it like a shrine. We replay conversations like echo chambers, and the ego, clever and convincing, says this is strength. But strength is not holding on. Strength is release. Strength is the softness that says, I deserve to be at peace now. You were not born to carry everything. You were born to be a vessel of light, and light is weightless. Do you see? You don't need the end of their chapter to write your next one. You don't need the missing piece to make yourself whole. You are not a puzzle that needs solving. You are a soul that needs unburdening. There is no closure for pain that came from unconsciousness. There is no closure for someone else's inability to love. There is no closure for injustice. There is only release, only grace. Only the surrender of your grip on what cannot be held. Imagine your pain as a rope you've been clenching. You've been calling it justice. You've been calling it memory. You've been calling it loyalty to your story. But it is only tension, only contraction, only a slow erosion of your energy. And what if in this very moment you could open your hand? What if the rope was never holding you, you were holding it? The moment you decide you no longer need anything from the past to be free, you are free. Release is a spiritual practice. It is the moment you say, I bless what was, I honor what it taught me, and I walk forward, not because I am finished, but because I am willing. Letting go doesn't mean you condone. It doesn't mean you approve. It doesn't mean you forget. It means you choose your aliveness over your attachment to what hurt you. It means you choose your present over your obsession with the past. It means you are no longer available for suffering dressed as justice. Closure asks for something to change outside you. Release asks for something to awaken within you. That awakening is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is quiet, gentle, a slow loosening of the knot in your heart, a whisper from within that says, come home now. You've grieved long enough. You've circled this mountain long enough. You've waited at that locked door long enough. And if you listen, really listen, you will hear something deeper than your pain. You will hear the sound of life beckoning you, the sound of wings unfolding, the sound of your own soul rising. And it will not ask for permission. It will not ask if they apologized. It will simply say, it's time. It's time. Time to unclench your fists. Time to stop arguing with ghosts. Time to stop negotiating with your suffering. Time to come back to the place inside that knows the past cannot imprison you unless you keep returning to yourself. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. You are not the one who was betrayed. You are the one who is healing. You are not the one who is broken. You are the one who is rising. You are not the character in their story. You are the author of your own. You don't need closure. You need release. And release begins now not with answers, but with willingness. Not with understanding, but with surrender. Not with justice, but with grace. Release does not mean weakness. It means you have remembered who you are. A soul cannot be diminished by another's inability to love. A light does not lose its brilliance because someone closed their eyes. And so I say again, let it go. Not for them, for you, for your peace, for your joy, for your freedom, because you were never meant to stay in the waiting room of someone else's healing. The mind will resist this truth. It will protest. It will plead for more time to analyze. It will whisper that if you just understood why, if you just found the missing puzzle piece, then and only then could you finally be free. But freedom doesn't come at the end of a mental equation. Freedom is not the reward for figuring it all out. Freedom is the reward for letting it all go. Your spirit does not speak in the language of blame. Your soul does not argue with the past. It lives in presence. It breathes in release. It expands in surrender. And it longs for you to remember what it has always known, that nothing and no one outside you has the power to chain your light unless you give them the key. There is something sacred in no longer needing to prove anything, no longer needing to be understood, no longer needing to be right, because the truth is not threatened by misunderstanding. The truth is not dependent on validation. The truth simply is. And when you begin to live from the truth of who you are, not the pain, not the story, not the identity forged in wounds, but from the truth that is eternal, spacious, unbroken, then you begin to live free. Release is a spiritual initiation. It requires trust. Trust that even if the past never apologizes, you can still bless your future. Trust that even if they never see your worth, it does not diminish your radiance. Trust that even if there is no justice in the world, there can be justice in your soul, the justice of choosing peace when you could have chosen poison. And isn't that the greatest power of all? To walk away not in anger, not in bitterness, not in pride, but in love. To say, I release you, and in doing so, I release me. Because we are always releasing ourselves. The grudge we hold is not anchored in them, it is anchored in us. It is our energy that is consumed, our sleep that is disturbed, our joy that is diluted. And so when you release, you are not letting them off the hook, you are unhooking yourself from their unconsciousness. There is no healing and hoping they'll one day understand. There is only waiting, and the soul is not here to wait. The soul is here to awaken. You must ask yourself, who am I without this pain? Who am I without this grievance? Who am I without the identity I've built around what they did? And the answer may frighten you because it means giving up the familiar suffering. But it will also liberate you because it means remembering the self that was never damaged to begin with. That self is still here, beneath the layers, beneath the protection, beneath the armor you put on after the heartbreak, after the betrayal, after the loss, the self that cannot be defined by abandonment, the self that cannot be erased by rejection, the self that was always whole, always enough, always free. Let me remind you of this. The wound is not who you are. It is where the light has entered. Yes, but you are the light, not the wound. You are the space through which pain passes, not the pain itself. And you can bless the path that brought you here without staying chained to it. Release is the medicine. Release is the miracle. Release is the moment you say, I no longer need to hold this to prove it mattered. It mattered, but your life matters more. Letting go is not a betrayal of your experience, it is the honoring of your evolution. Release is not something you do once, it is something you practice, moment by moment, with each thought that says, but you choose again, I release. With each story that replays the wound, you choose again, I release. With each urge to reopen the old conversation in your head, you choose again, I release. Until one day, without fanfare, without drama, it is simply gone. The hook is gone, the sting is gone, the need is gone. And in its place, peace. Peace does not roar. Peace whispers. Peace waits patiently for your return. It does not chase you. It does not demand your attention. It is simply there like a still lake, waiting for you to stop throwing stones. And when you finally stop, when you place your feet on the ground of now and declare, I am done living through the echo of what they could not give, the stillness becomes audible. And in that stillness, you will meet yourself again. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not behind. You are in process. You are in shedding. You are in remembering. You are not who they said you were. You are who you decide to be when you finally put it down. Put it down, the shame, the blame, the endless looping of what you should have said, the fantasy of what they could have become, the rewriting of the scene, the needing it to be different. All of it, lay it at the altar of your awakening, light a candle in your heart, and walk forward. You don't need closure. You need a beginning. You need the breath you haven't taken because your lungs were too full of grief. You need the dream you buried under resentment. You need the laughter that has been waiting at the edges of your healing. You need to remember joy, because joy is not a reward, it is your nature. Joy is not something you earn once the past behaves. It is the birthright of your soul. And every moment you choose release, you choose to return to that joy, the kind of joy that doesn't need a reason. Your healing is not conditional on anyone else's behavior. Your peace is not on layaway waiting for them to change. You can choose it now. You can rise now. You can walk out of the story now, not because it's finished, but because you are. And yes, the mind will try to pull you back. It will try to convince you that you are abandoning something important, but you are not abandoning anything. You are liberating everything. You are releasing your attachment to the narrative that says your worth is connected to their actions. It never was. You were whole before the wound. You are whole now. The wound simply asked you to remember. The pain was never the enemy. It was the awakening. But now that you are awake, You do not need to stay in the fire. You can step out, you can breathe again, you can choose softness over struggle, grace over grasping, release over revenge. This is not weakness, this is wisdom. And the wisdom of the soul says this: you are not here to carry what was never yours. You are not here to convince anyone of your value. You are not here to wait for someone else's healing before you begin your own. You are not here to find closure. You are here to be free. And freedom lives in release. There is no glory in carrying pain like a badge. There is no nobility in staying hurt to prove how deep the wound was. The wound does not need a witness. The wound needs your willingness to walk beyond it. Because staying in the pain to make a point only turns your soul into a courtroom. And you, the eternal witness of divine truth, are not meant to live on trial. The soul is not here to win arguments. It is here to awaken. So release the need to be understood. Not everyone has the eyes to see you. Not everyone has the heart to hold you. But that does not mean you are unworthy of love. It means that their perception is not your prison, and it never was. Release the fantasy that they will return and say all the right words. They might not, and if they do, it may come too late, long after the version of you that needed that apology is gone. Because healing is not waiting at that door. Healing is waiting inside your own heart where the key was always yours. Release the weight of proving you were right. What does it serve you now? How does it help to be righteous and miserable? You could be free instead. You could be joyful. You could be whole right now if you simply chose to stop needing the past, to align with your expectations. You see, closure is rooted in expectation, but release is rooted in acceptance. Closure asks, why did this happen? Release asks, what is this here to teach me? Closure says, until they see, I can't move on. Release says, I move forward because I choose to. Closure waits, release walks. Closure needs words. Release needs willingness. You don't need their words. You need your own affirmation, your own compassion, your own radical choice to reclaim your life from the hands you once gave it to. And maybe that's the real truth. You don't need closure because nothing was ever closed. You were never truly cut off from the love that created you. You were never severed from the infinite peace that lives within you. The pain didn't break you, it broke the illusion that anything outside of you could define your worth. That is what the pain was, for not punishment, not proof of your flaws, but awakening. A call to return to yourself, a divine invitation to see where you were giving away the power that was always yours. And if the pain was your teacher, then release is your graduation. Release says, I have learned what I needed to learn. I see the pattern. I recognize the mirror. I bow to the lesson. And now I rise. Let this be the moment you rise. You have mourned long enough. You have wept over the same memory enough times. You have picked the wound enough times. Let it heal. Not with bitterness, not with indifference, but with reverence. With the wisdom that knows even this pain was part of the path. And now the path calls you forward. Not because you're finished, not because it doesn't still hurt from time to time, but because your spirit has chosen the higher road. The road of letting go, the road of love without attachment, the road of peace without condition. Let them go. Not because they were right, but because you are ready. Let the story go. Not because it didn't matter, but because your new chapter matters more. Let the version of you who needed that closure dissolve into the light. Because that version was never your final form. That version was simply part of the unfolding. And now the petals open wider. Now the sun reaches deeper into your being. Now you remember what you forgot, that you are already whole, already worthy, already free. You are never broken, only buried beneath layers of misunderstanding, beneath projections and pain, beneath stories that were never yours to carry. But now you are emerging, not as someone fixed, not as someone better, but as someone who remembers. You remember that you are light. You remember that you are peace. You remember that you are not the story. You are the space that holds it all. And in that space, everything is allowed. The tears, the longing, the confusion, the anger. Let them come. Let them pass through. Let them teach you. But do not let them build a home. Do not let them become your identity. You are the witness, not the wound. And this is where the power lies. In choosing to be the witness. In choosing to be the presence that watches the storm but is not moved by it. In choosing to say, I see the pain and I bless it, but I do not become it. Because you can bless and release. You can forgive and let go. You can learn and not look back. And if you do, if you truly commit to the practice of release, you will feel something extraordinary. Not a rush, not a high, but a deep, steady peace. A quiet knowing. A profound stillness that no apology could ever give you. A freedom that cannot be touched by circumstance. That is the reward of release, not closure. Closure is a myth, a dangling carrot of the ego that promises peace if only everything aligns. But life rarely aligns perfectly. People rarely grow on your schedule. The past rarely rewrites itself in ways that make sense. And so the spiritual path is not to wait for perfect understanding, but to live from perfect presence. And presence does not need closure. Presence only needs now. So come back to now, this breath, this moment, this opening in your chest where the light pours in. Come back again and again until release is no longer something you do, but something you are. You are the release. You are the letting go. You are the divine expression of surrender in motion. And every time you choose peace over story, every time you choose presence over pain, every time you choose love over needing to be right, you become the embodiment of freedom itself. You don't need closure. You never did. You need to remember that nothing outside of you can complete what is already whole within. And when you arrive in that sacred place of release, truly arrive, you begin to see with different eyes. Not the eyes of the body, but the eyes of the spirit. You no longer try to rewrite the past. You no longer negotiate with what has already been written. You no longer cling to what has already gone. You simply bless it, and you bless yourself for surviving it. You stop needing the apology. You stop needing the explanation. You stop needing the one who hurt you to also be the one who heals you. Because now you know, healing was never theirs to give. It was always yours to claim. You can love someone and still let them go. You can honor what you went through and still walk away. You can remember what it taught you without reliving what it cost you. That is the quiet, sacred power of the soul to carry the lesson and release the weight. And what you begin to realize in that holy moment of surrender is that there is nothing missing, nothing lacking, nothing left undone. Because what you were truly seeking was never closure. It was freedom. It was peace. It was the lightness of no longer needing the story to change in order for you to live. And now you are living. Now you are breathing. Now you are awake. Release is not forgetting. Release is remembering who you were before the pain. It is returning to your natural state, one of wholeness, of grace, of truth. Release is not an erasing, it is an embracing of your power to choose. And your choice now is this. I choose to be free. I choose to be at peace. I choose to live untethered to what no longer serves me. You no longer wait for them to return. You no longer stand at a closed door. You no longer need closure because you have chosen release. And release is the end of waiting. It is the end of bargaining. It is the end of suffering disguised as justice. Release is your return to the truth. And the truth is this: you are not broken. You are not behind. You are not waiting for your healing. You are the healing. You are the open sky. You are the still water. You are the divine presence that cannot be harmed by what was temporary. You are what remains when everything else fades. So lay it down now, all of it. The questions, the stories, the weight. Lay it down. Not because it didn't matter, but because it mattered so much, you now choose to honor it by letting it rest. And in that letting go, you do not collapse, you rise. You rise into your becoming. You rise into your peace. You rise into your power. You rise because you finally understand closure is something the mind begs for, but release is what the soul came here to master. This is your moment, your turning point, your liberation. You don't need closure. You never did. You need to remember who you are, and you are already free. There is a door within you that opens only when you decide to put down the weight you were never meant to carry. That weight is resentment. That door is called forgiveness. And what lies beyond it is not weakness, not surrender, but your own unshackled freedom. You see, your soul came into this world not to hold on, but to let go. Not to collect wounds and grievances, but to grow through them and move beyond them. But the mind, that loyal servant of the ego, clutches tightly to its pain. It builds a fortress around every injustice and names it truth. It stockpiles old betrayals like sacred scrolls and keeps them on the shelves of your inner world, dusting them off with pride, as if remembering the pain is the same as preventing it. But what the mind calls protection, the soul calls imprisonment. There is no peace in holding on to anger, no joy in nursing the ache of what was. You do not become stronger by staying bitter. You do not become wiser by staying wounded. You do not become free by replaying the same hurt over and over, like a broken hymn echoing through the halls of your past. Forgiveness is not about the other. It is not a pardon for what was done, nor a denial of your pain. It is the act of removing the knife from your own heart, not because the blade didn't cut deep, but because you choose to bleed no more. To forgive is not to forget. It is to remember differently. To remember from a place of clarity rather than chaos, from love rather than fear. It is to release the story that pain is who you are and return to the truth that you are divine, that you are whole, that you are not your suffering. The great philosophers and spiritual teachers did not tell us to forgive because it is easy. They told us to forgive because it is the only way to fly. Jesus said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." He did not say this to comfort others. He said it to liberate himself from the cycle of pain. The Buddha taught that holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. And even in the Stoic writings of Marcus Aurelius, you will find this wisdom repeated, that you cannot control what others do, but you can always control whether you will let it define you. So I ask you, dear soul, what are you still carrying? Whose name lives in your body like a wound that never closes? What memory still haunts the sacred quiet of your heart? You cannot move forward while dragging the past behind you like a broken cart. And you cannot awaken to the vast sky of your being while clutching tightly to the smallness of your pain. Forgiveness is not something you give to another. It is something you give to yourself, a declaration that you will no longer allow another person's unconsciousness to shape your destiny. It is a sacred refusal to let your past become your prison. You are not here to stay stuck. You are here to transform. And what transforms you is not more anger, not more revenge, not more justification, but surrender. Yes, forgiveness is surrender, but not the kind the ego fears. It is not surrendering to someone else's power. It is surrendering the illusion that you ever lost yours. When you forgive, you take your power back. You reclaim your peace. You stop waiting for someone else to make it right. You stop negotiating with ghosts. Think of the ocean. It does not try to hold back the waves. It allows them to rise, crash, dissolve, and return. That is forgiveness. It is allowing the emotions to move through you, not to stay stuck in you. It is a tide that washes away the hardened footprints of pain so that you may walk barefoot again on the shore of your now. There is no timeline for forgiveness, only a readiness. And you will know you are ready when you are more tired of suffering than you are afraid of letting go. You may think you cannot forgive until the other apologizes. But what if that apology never comes? What if the one who hurt you cannot see their blindness, cannot feel your sorrow, cannot meet you in your depth? Will you let their ignorance hold the key to your inner peace? The truth is this: your freedom has never depended on them. Your healing does not require their awakening. Your soul does not need their remorse to return to its radiance. The energy of unforgiveness creates a dam in the river of life. It blocks the flow of your joy, your vitality, your intuition. And when that dam is released, when forgiveness breaks it open, your spirit rushes forward like a flood, powerful, clear, and reborn. You were not created to live in a cage of old emotions. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not the names they called you or the moments they abandoned you. You are the one who survived, the one who still breathes, the one who even now has the power to love again. Forgiveness is not forgetting what happened. It is remembering who you are. You are a soul made of stardust and silence. You are the timeless breath of the divine. And no wound, no matter how deep, can erase your eternal worth. When you choose forgiveness, you join with the great current of healing that flows through all life. You participate in the sacred act of renewal. You declare to the universe, I am no longer a victim of my past. I am the author of my now. And the moment you do this, the very moment the chains fall, the air becomes lighter. The heart, once bruised and clenched, begins to soften. The breath becomes a prayer. And something ancient within you exhales for the first time in years. This is the miracle of forgiveness. Not that it changes the past, but that it transforms your relationship to it. You begin to see the pain as teacher, the betrayal as mirror, the wound as initiation. You understand that nothing was wasted, that even the darkest chapter was guiding you home. You may ask, but how do I forgive what feels unforgivable? And the answer, my friend, is not in your mind, it is in your willingness. Forgiveness is not an intellectual act, it is a sacred decision. You don't have to feel it yet, you only have to be willing. Willing to loosen your grip, willing to see differently, willing to heal. And from that willingness, grace will come. A new perspective will dawn. The heart, once closed like a fist, will begin to open like a flower in the sun. You don't need to know how to forgive. You only need to say yes to the healing that is already trying to reach you. Your soul is not interested in blame. It is not interested in being right. It is interested in being free. And forgiveness, true, deep soul-level forgiveness is the key. There is a sacred moment, not seen with the eyes, but felt within the very breath when you finally realize that holding on is hurting more than it's helping. And in that moment, something ancient in you weeps, not out of sadness, but out of relief, because the soul has waited lifetimes for you to come to this edge, the edge where you no longer define yourself by the pain inflicted upon you. This is where transformation begins. To forgive is to choose truth over trauma. It is to let the memory exist without letting it possess you. It is to open the gates of your being and allow the light to pour in where darkness once lived, like a tenant overstaying its welcome. You do not need to fix the past. You do not need to rewrite it. You only need to stop carrying it as if it were your identity. You are not what they did. You are not what they didn't do. You are not the brokenness you inherited. You are the awareness watching it all unfold. And that awareness is untouched. It is eternal. It is divine. The ego wants justice. It wants the scales balanced. It wants the pain repaid. But the soul only wants peace. And peace cannot exist where you are still rehearsing your pain. You may think you are protecting yourself by not forgiving. You may believe that staying angry keeps you safe, but in truth, it is like drinking poison every day, hoping it will harm someone else. It won't. It is only your joy, your vitality, your presence that is being quietly eroded. Forgiveness is not saying what they did was okay. It is saying that you will no longer allow what they did to determine who you are. The soul, when it forgives, does not become weaker. It becomes lighter. It becomes clearer. It becomes closer to its original essence. For the true self was never wounded, never tarnished. Only the mind, the story, the image, only that was bruised, but not the soul. The soul remains what it has always been, free. There is profound wisdom in allowing the past to be past. You do not owe it your allegiance. You do not owe your suffering loyalty. You owe yourself freedom. You owe yourself the release of that heavy burden, because life is not meant to be carried. It is meant to be lived. The lotus grows in the mud, not despite it, but because of it. So too do you rise, not in the absence of pain, but in your sacred decision to grow beyond it. The mind may say, but I can't forgive, it hurts too much. And that is okay. That is not the voice of weakness. That is the voice of someone standing at the threshold of healing. Even the smallest willingness to forgive cracks the door open. And once light finds its way in, healing becomes inevitable. You do not have to forgive perfectly. You only have to forgive honestly. And honesty means acknowledging the pain, not avoiding it. It means sitting with the grief, the rage, the sorrow, not as enemies, but as guests. Let them come, let them speak, let them leave. Your job is not to suppress. Your job is to allow and then to release, because that is forgiveness. It is the art of letting go without needing to forget, without needing to be repaid, without needing it to be fair. It is a return to the only place where peace is possible, the present moment. Every time you choose to forgive, you return to yourself. You come back to the breath. You come back to stillness. You come back to the open field of now, where nothing is missing and everything begins again. Forgiveness is not a single act. It is a spiritual practice, a way of being, a daily choice to choose love over fear, to choose freedom over bondage, to choose now over then. And with each choice, you soften. With each choice, you rise. You begin to see that the person who hurt you was hurt too, that their unconsciousness was their jail cell, that their blindness was their burden. You don't excuse it, but you see it. And in that seeing, you release the need to make them your jailer, because you are no longer a prisoner. The moment you forgive, you leave the cell. And the lock was never on the door, it was only in your mind. This is not a message for the faint of heart. Forgiveness takes courage. It takes spiritual maturity. It takes a willingness to live by higher laws than the ego can comprehend. It is the highest form of self-love to say, I set myself free, not because you earned it, but because I did. Do you see, dear soul? Forgiveness is not for them. It never was. It's for you, for your healing, for your peace, for your life. Your heart was not designed to be a vault of pain. It was meant to be a sanctuary of love. And love cannot grow where resentment roots. So you must become the gardener. Pull out the weeds of bitterness, water the soil with grace, let the light in, and watch as joy, real joy, returns. Not the kind that depends on anyone else, but the kind that arises simply because you are no longer at war with yourself. When you forgive, you return to the sacred truth that you are not separate, that we are all threads in the same divine fabric. And what you do to another, you do to yourself. When you forgive another, you extend grace inward. When you release your grip on their wrongs, you loosen the noose around your own soul. And yes, it takes time, it takes patience, but it begins with one choice: to stop carrying what doesn't belong to your future. You are not here to drag chains. You are here to spread wings. Let this be your moment of decision, the moment you choose to lay the weight down, to breathe deeper, to feel again, to live, because life, true life, begins where forgiveness flows. There is a silence that follows true forgiveness, not the silence of suppression, but the silence of liberation. It is the stillness that comes when the storm has passed, when the inner courtroom has closed, when you no longer need to keep replaying the trial in your mind. And in that silence, you meet yourself again. Not the wounded self, not the defensive self, but the original self, the self before the story, before the betrayal, before the pain had a name. That self has always been there, waiting for you to put down your sword, waiting for you to stop demanding justice in a world that rarely gives it, waiting for you to realize that freedom isn't given, it's chosen. Forgiveness is that choice. It is not an escape from truth, it is a deeper truth. It is not turning a blind eye, it is opening both eyes fully and deciding to see through them with love instead of fear. You were never meant to be a reservoir of resentment. You are a vessel for light. And when you empty yourself of bitterness, you make space for the radiance of your soul to come forth again. No one else needs to change for you to forgive. The apology may never come. The understanding may never arrive. The other may never even know how deeply they hurt you. But none of that matters. Because forgiveness is not about changing the past. It's about reclaiming your power in the present. You are not bound to the events of yesterday unless you tie yourself to them. You are not sentenced to keep reliving the injury unless you choose to stay within the walls of it. The door has always been open. You've just needed the courage to walk through it. Let go of the belief that suffering equals strength. Let go of the idea that being right is more important than being free. Let go of the inner posture that says, until they see, I won't heal, because they may never see, and you deserve to heal anyway. Your healing is not conditional. Your joy is not contingent on someone else's remorse. You are the source. You are the healer. You are the one who gets to decide how long the pain stays. Imagine your spirit like a bird in a cage, the door wide open, yet unmoving, believing the bars are still there. Forgiveness is the act of realizing there were no bars, only the memory of them, and then spreading your wings. When you forgive, you do not lose yourself. You recover yourself. You become whole, not by rewriting the story, but by rewriting your relationship to it. You look at your pain and say, I bless you. You taught me, but you do not define me. This is how the soul evolves. Not through perfection, but through the sacred choice to rise again and again above the level of injury. To meet darkness not with more darkness, but with the light that says, I am more than what happened to me. You become the space through which healing enters the world. And in doing so, you become a healing to others. You begin to understand why the greatest spiritual teachers walk through betrayal, abandonment, suffering, not to remain stuck in it, but to show what is possible when love is chosen anyway. They taught forgiveness not because it was easy, but because it was transformational. The Course in Miracles reminds us all forgiveness is self-forgiveness, because when you forgive another, you release your own mind from the grip of judgment. You stop punishing yourself by carrying the burden of what cannot be changed. To forgive is not to condone, but to transcend. You rise, you bless, you release, and in that release, you discover a new kind of power, not the power that dominates, but the power that liberates. The power that sets your inner world free so your outer life may follow. There's nothing weak about forgiveness. It is the greatest strength the human spirit can embody. Anyone can fight. Anyone can resent. Anyone can stay wounded. But to love in the face of injury, to release when revenge seems justified, to rise when bitterness feels more familiar, that is mastery. That is the divine in human form. That is you when you remember who you are. So I ask you again, what are you still holding? Whose face still lives in the shadows of your thoughts? What moment still echoes in your chest when silence falls? Let it come to the surface. Let it rise like steam from the body. Don't judge it, just witness it with the eyes of compassion, not contempt. And then bless it. Say, I forgive you. I forgive myself. I forgive this moment for being as it was, and mean it, even if your voice trembles, even if the hurt still lingers, even if your hands shake from the weight of letting go, because forgiveness is not a one-time act. It is a rhythm, a devotion, a return. Every time your mind goes back to the wound, you gently guide it back to love. It is a spiritual muscle. The more you use it, the stronger you become. And eventually the pain that once screamed now whispers. And then one day it vanishes like fog lifting from a valley. And you are still here, stronger, softer, more radiant than ever. This is the truth, beloved. You were not born to hold grudges. You were born to hold light. You were not born to carry pain. You were born to carry peace. You were not born to relive the past. You were born to create the future. And the moment you forgive truly, deeply, and fully, that future begins. There is a softness that emerges in your being. The moment you forgive, not because you have forgotten, but because you have remembered what truly matters. You remember that love is who you are, not what they gave. You remember that peace is not something you wait for, it is something you claim. You remember that you are not the wounded child still begging for recognition. You are the eternal soul stepping back into your power. Forgiveness is not an act of erasing, but of alchemizing. You take what was once heavy and you transmute it into light. You take what once hurt and you turn it into wisdom. You take what was meant to shatter you and you allow it to sculpt the highest version of you. And what is this highest version? It is the you who knows that nothing outside can take away the divinity within. It is the you who understands that no one can truly harm you because your essence is untouchable. They may bruise the body, they may betray the trust, but they cannot scar the soul unless you let the wound linger through unforgiveness. And so you choose to release, not because it feels good in the moment, but because you are ready to stop giving your future to your past. The longer you hold on to resentment, the longer you delay your destiny. Each time you revisit the hurt with bitterness, you say to life, I'm not ready to move forward. But each time you choose forgiveness, even in a whisper, you open the gates for grace to flow again. Life responds to that. The universe breathes a little easier when you choose love. Creation expands when you stop contracting in pain. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is fierce. It requires a kind of inner strength that most people never cultivate because it demands that you rise above the story. It asks you to see through spiritual eyes, eyes that perceive not what was done, but what can be learned, what can be healed, what can be transcended. It is one thing to be right. It is another to be free. And make no mistake, the world does not need more people proving they are right. The world needs more people willing to be free. Free of stories, free of blame, free of the identity that clings to victimhood like a shield, free of the endless if-onlys that circle the mind like birds without nests, free of waiting for others to redeem what they broke. You do not need anyone else to give you closure. Closure is an illusion, a waiting room of suffering. You don't need closure. You need clarity. You need to see that healing was never about the one who hurt you. It was always about your relationship to yourself. When you forgive, you reclaim that relationship. You say to your own heart, I am ready to honor you. I am ready to live for you. I am ready to stop bleeding from wounds that were never yours to carry forever. And in that moment, you awaken. You awaken to the truth that your peace is more important than your pride, that your future deserves more than the echo of betrayal, that your presence cannot coexist with poison. Yes, resentment is poison, subtle, addictive, justified, but poison still. And the only antidote is the fierce grace of forgiveness. Grace that says, I release you, not because you deserve it, but because I do. Grace that says, I will not shrink into bitterness. I will not bow to pain. I will not become what hurt me. Grace that says, I will choose love. I will walk free. I will trust the process of life again. Because life is always waiting with open hands. But it cannot fill what you keep clenching. It cannot bless what you keep guarding. It cannot flow through a vessel that refuses to empty. Forgiveness is the great emptying. It is pouring out the stale wine of the past to make room for the living water of now. It is uncurling your fingers from the stories that once made you feel safe, but now only make you feel stuck. You are not stuck because of what happened. You are stuck because of how you've held it. And the miracle is this: the moment you change how you hold it, the moment you offer it back to the divine, the moment you say, I no longer need to carry this, you become weightless. And with that weightlessness comes vision, clarity, strength, compassion, joy. You begin to see the hidden architecture of the pain, how it shaped your resilience, how it opened your empathy, how it taught you what matters most. You begin to see how every soul is on a journey, and some are still asleep, some hurt others because they don't know how to do anything else. And while that does not excuse the harm, it allows you to release the illusion that their behavior was about you. It wasn't. It never was. It was about their own wound, their own fear, their own confusion. And you, being the light you are, were simply present when their darkness came through. You can honor the truth of your pain and still choose not to let it define you. You can acknowledge the impact and still choose your own liberation. You can tell the truth and still let it go. Because forgiveness is not the absence of memory. It is the presence of wisdom. You remember, but differently. You remember without hate, without shame, without vengeance. You remember with gentleness, with compassion, with a quiet, unshakable strength. You become a living prayer, not for justice, not for revenge, but for peace. A prayer that sounds like this: I forgive you, I release you, I bless the path that brought us here, and I walk forward free. And now, here you are standing at the edge of a new life. A life no longer built on wounds, but on wisdom. A life no longer defined by stories of pain, but by acts of grace. A life that no longer waits for someone to make it right, because you have made the most important choice of all to set yourself free. You may feel lighter already, or you may still feel the ache of letting go, but know this: whatever you feel is right, whatever arises is holy, because in the sacred act of forgiveness, everything becomes a teacher, even your trembling, even your tears. You are walking into the open now, into a future unshackled, into a heart unburdened, into a soul that no longer confuses its light with its losses. And though the world may still spin in its chaos, though others may never understand your depth or honor your path, you will know something they don't: that you are free, that no past can imprison the spirit that chooses to forgive, that no wound is stronger than the one who is willing to heal, that the highest act of courage is to love anyway, to release anyway, to rise anyway. So breathe deeply now, not as the one who was hurt, but as the one who has returned to wholeness. Breathe as the soul who no longer seeks permission to live unburdened. Breathe as the sacred, shining, radiant being you've always been, now uncloaked by the fog of old pain. This is not the end. This is your beginning. The beginning of a life rooted not in what broke you, but in what awakened through the breaking. You are not here to carry scars like trophies. You are here to turn wounds into wings. And forgiveness? Forgiveness is the wind beneath them. Now fly.